The Huguenot Museum in Rochester houses a family Bible unlike any other.
In the 1680s, persecution of Protestants gets worse, and soldiers are being sent to people's homes to raid their homes for Protestant materials like Bibles. The family could see soldiers coming, and so they hastily reached for the batter for a loaf of bread and quickly concealed it, and luckily the soldiers didn't investigate the bread oven and the Bible was saved.
So it was actually baked?
Yes.
That's amazing.
The edges of the pages are damaged, there's some dark scorching and water damage to the pages.
So it really gives a sense of the precarious state of Huguenots in France at this time.
It does. So people could be thrown into prison, men were condemned to the galley ships, and women could be forced into convents.
In 1598, the Edict of Nantes had granted Calvinist Protestants in France the liberty to practice their religion. However, in 1685, Louis XIV revoked this decree, making official the Dragonnades, a policy of intimidation with the intent of converting Huguenots to Catholicism.
And I can see it's in French, it's not in Latin.
This is really important. The Bible was in French so that ordinary literary people could read it for themselves, and this is an essential part of Protestantism. The title page was removed, and again the family story is that that title page was removed to protect the identity of the printer.
What an incredible object.
Another aspect of being a Huguenot in this time is that when you went to services, you often had to go to secret services, out in secluded locations, and of course you couldn't take a Bible this size with you. Yeah. So what you would take is a miniature Bible or prayer book, and that's what we have here.
I mean, it's so exquisite and adorable, but it's really sort of tells this much darker history, doesn't it?
It reflects the experience of being a part of a persecuted minority religion.
So it's a completely clandestine operation, isn't it?
Yeah.
The arriving Huguenots, depicted here in 1736 by Hogarth as prim and proper Christians, in contrast to the slovenly Londoners, brought with them an array of skills. They were master gold and silversmiths, clockmakers and optometrists. But perhaps their greatest talent was in the field of silk weaving. As urban dwellers, the Huguenots gravitated towards London. While their numbers might have represented 1% of the English population at the time, in London that figure was far higher. It's thought as much as a quarter of Spitalfields spoke French by the early to mid-18th century. 19 Princelet Street is Europe's first museum of immigration. Tell me about the word refugee and the Huguenots.
Huguenots are the first newcomers described as refugees. You have a very dominant group in this area. You know, 9 out of 10 families living in this street were French Huguenots. And they had come here to find a place of safety, a refuge. And in French, they're talking about themselves as réfugiés, because English-speaking people around heard this réfugié word. Ah, you're refugees.
So how would a Huguenot migrant have been received here in London?
Differently by different people. People were worried about competition for jobs, particularly less skilled, less well-paid jobs. So there was a lot of hostility. There were attacks and violence against Huguenots, as well as people writing pamphlets saying, no, we must welcome them because they will be good for our economy or because they are fellow Christians or fellow Protestants. So it's a complex story of both welcome and rejection.
And so it's fitting to end our story here. Today, this is the Brick Lane Mosque. Before that, a Jewish synagogue. And originally, 300 years ago, a Huguenot church. The sundial bears an inscription taken from the Roman poet Horace. Umbra sumus, we are but shadows.